Alright, welcome back. So recently Vercel announced Next.JS 13. Right, so today we're going to take a look at some of its exciting new features. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Alright, so for today we will just be setting up two things. Alright, so obviously first is Next.js 13 and secondly Tailwind CSS, right, for some simple styling as well. So without further ado, let's jump straight into our terminal. Alright, so now we are in our terminal. Okay, so let's create a new Next.js project. So to do so, we can say npx, alright, create dash next dash app add latest space dash dash experimental dash app. Alright, enter. And Next.js will ask you for the name of your app. Okay, let's call this Next.js 13-app. Alright. And of course, we want to use TypeScript with this. Yeah. And of course, ESLint. Right. So now it's installing the required dependencies. Right. So this will take a while and we'll be back once this is done. Yeah. Alright, we're back. So Next.js 13 has been installed. Alright, let's go into the directory itself. So Next.js 13-app. Alright, let me just clear that so you can see what we are typing here. So next we need to install or add Tailwind CSS. Right, so to do so, you can say yarn add Tailwind CSS and its required dependencies as well. So there will be post CSS and auto prefixer. All right. So once again, enter and we'll be back once this is done. Yeah. All right. And we are back and Tailwind CSS has been installed. Right. So let's clear that again. So next we need to configure Tailwind CSS. Right. So to do so, we can say npx Tailwind CSS init dash p, enter, and Tailwind CSS will generate two files for us, right? Tailwind.config.js and post css.config.js. Right. So next, okay, we'll have to jump over to our VS Code to do some configuration for both Next.js 13 and Tailwind CSS, right? So without further ado, let's jump over to our VS Code. Alright, so now we are in our VS Code. You can see that we have our Chrome on the right. Alright, so that will come into play once we start the app later on. Alright, but now let's open up our project folder. Alright, so that will be under web apps. Okay, you will not be able to see this because it's a pop-up dialog. Okay, but you should be able to see, right, the files above me, right, the generated files, right, from Next.js 13. Right, so first thing first, let's go to tailwind.config.js. Right, so over here we need to modify this content array. Right, so to do so, okay, I will put the link to the documentation for configuring Tailwind CSS with Next.js 13, right? So you can do the same steps that we are doing right now, okay? But we are going to modify this content array. We are going to paste in the new, or rather the Next.js directories, right? So that will be the user pages, path, components, and the new app for Next.js 13, okay, which we will be using later on as well. All right. Okay, so next we also need to go to our global.css, all right, global.css. And over here we need to, okay, add this all the way at the top. Okay, this is for configuring Tailwind CSS as well. All right, so save that, right? That is all you need to do to configure Tailwind CSS to work with Next.js 13, all right? Right, so moving on, next we need to configure Next.js 13. Okay, so to ensure that you are using the new experimental, okay, it's still in beta, app directory for Next.js 13, we need to go to next.config.js, and we need to make sure that this is here, or that this is true for app directory, right? So if you see this means that it is using the new app directory, right, with Next.js 13. Yeah. Okay, so now it's time for us to start our app. All right, so let's go back to our terminal. Okay, we're back in our terminal. All right, let me just clear all this. Okay, and we can start our development server by using yarn dev. All right, so this shouldn't take too long. Okay, you can see that it's in the process of doing so, or starting the dev server, right? And it's done in 2.3 seconds. Yeah. All right, let's go back to our VS Code and the Chrome browser again. Okay, now if we refresh, okay, the Chrome browser on the right, all right, you will see that it says, welcome to Next.js 13. Yeah, so you can say get started by editing app /page.tsx. Yeah, so let's do just that. All right, so that is over here. You can see above me, yeah, the page.tsx in the new app directory. Okay, let's close that. Okay, so you can see, for example, if we remove this h1 and save, you can see that the welcome to Next.js 13 disappears. Yeah, so this is also hot module reloading. Yeah, so if you have been watching our videos, by now you should be familiar with what that is. Yeah. Okay, let's put that back in. All right. So now we need to talk about routing, right? But let's start from fixed or static page routing, right? Especially in the new apps directory, right? So for example, okay, in our app directory here, you can see I'm clicking on it. Okay, let's create a new folder. Let's call this account. And in account, okay, we are going to create a new file. Let's call page.tsx. Yeah. All right. So over here, we're going to create a new component or new page by using a code snippet that I have previously configured, right, to save time. You can see that it saves a lot of time. So we're going to call this account page. Yeah. And we're going to say this is account page, right? Save. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing, okay, by creating another folder under app, under the new app directory, and call this settings. And we're going to create a new file. Let's call this page.tsx, right? Same thing here. Right, this will be settings page, and we'll say this is settings page. All right. Okay, now let's go to Chrome on the right. Yeah, all the way to the right. And let's try to find our new routes, right? So we created, okay, so remember we created a new folder called accounts, and we have a page.tsx in it. Right, so we're just going to type account and enter. Right, you'll see that it says this is account page. Yeah, so you can see how easy it is to set up static page routing, right, in Next.js 13, right, under the new app directory. Right, same thing, since we have a settings folder, right, we can also say settings, and it should say this is settings page. Yep. All right, so that is how you can set up static page routing, right? Using just, right, based on your project folder directory, okay, under the app directory. All right. Okay, so what happens if, right, say you have users, right? You have users in your app or products in your app. And of course, you can't only have one product, right? You might have 100 products, yeah? So in those kind of situations, you might need dynamic page routing, right? So to configure a dynamic page routing where you can say, for example, pass in the ID or UUID of a product to a route. Okay, to do so, okay, so once again, under the new app directory for Next.JS 13, okay, we're going to create a new folder. Let's call this products, yeah. Okay, and under products, okay, we're going to create another folder, okay, with the name of square brackets ID, right? So this ID is what? This ID within the square brackets, right, is what allows the dynamic page routing to work, right? So in this ID folder, we're going to create a page.tsx, all right? And over here, okay, what we're going to do is, okay, we're going to create a component once again. So NSFC, and this will be, let's say, product page, all right? And in order to capture this ID here, right? Okay, what we're going to do is pass in a params, all right? And we can say constant ID equals to params.id. And over here, this is for product, and this will be ID, right? Now, okay, let's save that, and let's go to Chrome on the right. Okay, so let's change our URL from setting to products. Okay, and of course, let's remember the ID. So for example, if we pass in an ID of 10, right, you'll see that it says this is for product 10. Yeah, so that is how you can configure dynamic page routing, and using whatever parameter or ID, okay, or argument you pass in the route, right, you can retrieve the relevant or the corresponding data of that object. Right, in this case, it would be product for us. Yeah. Okay, so that is for dynamic page routing. Okay, but there's just one more thing in terms of routing. Okay, what happens if you want to group together different routes, right? Under maybe, say, for example, one or multiple different types of categories. For example, yeah. How would you do that? Yeah, under the new app directory, right? Since creating a new folder here, yeah, under this app directory would create a new route, okay? But we don't want that, right? We just want to group them together, right? We want that freedom to create a project structure, right? To group and easily manage our code and components and whatnot, yeah? So to do so, okay, under app, we're going to create a new folder, okay? And this time, instead of using square brackets, we're going to say circle brackets, right? Just a normal bracket, yeah? And we're going to say, for example, men, okay? For example, for male products, yeah? We're going to say men, right? Just men. Or even, okay, let's change it to male, yeah? Male, right? And of course, we're going to create a new folder under male. Let's call this maybe, right, let's call this shoes, right? So, and under shoes, we're going to create a new file. Let's call this page.tsx, yeah? So let's create a new component here. So this will be man shoes page. And of course, this is man shoes page, right? Save that. Okay, so under male, okay, we're going to create another folder. Let's call this clothes, yeah? And under clothes, let's create another page.tsx to display the text as well. Right, so this will be male clothes page. Yeah, so of course, we're just going to say this is for male clothes page. Save that, right? And let's go over to Chrome, all right? Okay, we're going to change the URL here. So remember, we create a new folder called mail, okay, and another subfolder under it. Let's call it, we name it close. So if we enter now, okay, you see that we got an error, and that is because the route, or rather the folder that we created with the brackets mail, right, isn't a route, because if you wrap a folder name with brackets, right, Next.js 13 will ignore it, right? You think that, okay, so this is a group, I will not create a route for it, yeah? So this is a good way for you to organize your code, and I guess in the longer run, this is better management, yeah? So for this to work, we just need to say /close. There you go, right? So this is for mail close page, right? Same thing for shoes. Yeah, so this is man shoes page. Yeah, so that is how you can manage your components better using group page routing. Yeah. All right, so moving on, the next thing that we should talk about are nested layouts. All right. So let's go back to our folder on the left here. Right, you can see I'm moving my cursor up and down the fast above. Yeah. Okay, but let's go to this layout.tsx over here. Right, you'll see that this is actually generated by default, right, by Next.js 13. All right. So what we are going to do here is, so if we go back to Chrome on the right, and let's go to the root path, you'll see, of course, welcome to Next.js 13. Yeah, so that is actually from this page.tsx. All right, but let's go back to that layout.tsx over here. So what we're going to do here is, in our body here, we'll still keep this children here. But above that, we're going to say, let's add a new div here. And we're going to add a row of maybe navigation links. Yeah, so we're going to use the next link. Yeah. And we'll just link to products 1. Yeah. And we'll say this is product 1. Yeah. And of course, we want them to be displayed in a row. So we'll say flex, or rather using tailwind, there'll be class name. So flex row, and maybe some spacing in between each of them. Yeah. So we're going to create a few links here. All right. So this could be products 2, products 3, products 4. All right. So watch what happens to our app on the right. When I hit save. Right, you see that all the way at the top, top left corner, you see 4 links that appear. Right. We will put it maybe somewhere not so all the way at the top. Yeah. For example, you can say this is fixed, and maybe top 10, and maybe some padding on the left, maybe 5. Yeah, let's do that. So if we refresh, you see that now it's all the way, it's pushed down, right? But let's remove this because it's blocking our navigation. Save that. So now you see, we can see the navigation links at the top, right? Let's go back to that. So why did we add this over here? The reason why is because, watch what happens when we click on any of the 4 links here, right? So for example, if I click on product 1 now, right, notice that, we change to the products URL, which is what we created over here. Yeah, this page. But the navigation links are still there. Yeah, so this is an example of nested layout. Yeah, but of course, If we want to move the children further down so that the navigation always appear on top, we can go back to our layout over here. And for children, okay, we can just wrap it around another div and give it some spacing from the top, yeah, using class name once again. So we can say maybe padding top 20, yeah. Right, let's save that and let's refresh. Right, there we go. And to show you exactly where the navigation is, okay, we're just gonna say border and border dash maybe, right, let's do yellow, yeah. So that's very obvious. Save that. And you'll see that, okay, the navigation, the 4 links that we added, right, are wrapped around in a border. Let me just give it some spacing as well, yeah. Or maybe some padding along the y-axis, yeah. Save that, right? So now it looks better, yeah. Okay, so this is actually multiples of 4, yep. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so actually, this is for product 1, right? It's from another page, okay, but we are still seeing the navigation bar because this is in our layout.tsx. Right, so in addition to this, we can also add another layout.tsx in our products directory. Alright, so what we can do here is I do have another code snippet prepared to generate a layout. Right, so we can do L, there will be NS. Right, let me just check my code snippet for layout component. Right, there will be NLC. Right, so NLC, and you can see that we have another layout, okay, in our products route. Right, so save that. Okay, so over here, let's say we want to see where our product page is at. So let's do another border around it. Okay, but with a different color. So maybe green. Yeah, let's do green, yeah. And some spacing or padding along the Y and X axis. Alright, so after saving, you'll see the green border around. This is for product 1. Right, so the border is from this right section in our layout, and of course this is for product 1 is from here. Right, so watch what happens right in our app, okay, when we click on the product 2 link. Okay, so notice that now it says this is for product 2, or this is for product 3, and this is for product 4. Okay, but notice that even though we are changing the page itself, right, the navigation bar is still all the way at the top visible, right? So that is because of this root layout here with the navigation that we added. Okay, so it will appear for every route. Yeah, so that is how you can leverage on nested layout easily, right, in Next.js 13. Yeah. All right, and next, something really important. I would say this is the most important thing that we have to talk about, and that is client and server components. All right, so if you are coming from React and you have an experience of creating single page apps, right, most of the components that you have created will most likely be client components. Right, so for example, an example of a client component would be something, let's create a client component. Okay, so for example, let's create a new folder. Let's call this counter. Actually, let's call this home. All right. And in home, okay, we're going to create a new page.tsx. Yeah. So same thing here, and as FC, this will be, okay, let's call this home page. Yeah. So over here, we can say this is the home page. Save that. All right. And let's go to /home. It should say this is the home page. All right, so nothing new so far. Okay, but we're going to create another file under the home directory. Yeah, and we're going to call this counter.tsx. All right, so over here, we're going to create a client component, right? So as how you would create a React component. So usually we will say, right, import React from React. Okay, and okay, we can say NSFC. Okay, but okay, we have to remove the async function, and this will be counter. Yeah. Okay, and of course we need our use state, right? Exactly how you would create any components in React, right? Most of the time. Yeah. So for example, we'll say count, set count. This will be number, and we'll start with 0, right? And over here in our div, okay, we'll say, okay, maybe let's create another div, and we'll say this is count, semicolon, and we'll just display count here. All right. Okay, and okay, maybe you have a button here. All right, so let's say, let's put it in between our new div. Okay, let's say button. Yeah, and add, and on click, we'll say set count, and we'll say count plus plus, or maybe count plus 1. Yeah. Okay, and of course we need our arrow function. Yeah, so save that. All right. Okay, and in our page.tsx, here we will import our counter component that we just created. Yeah, so counter. Okay, and save. All right. You notice that we got an error. Yeah, on the right for our app. Right, it says that you are importing a component that needs use state, and this only works in a client component. Yeah, so in order to use client components in our app directory, right, make sure you put use client all the way at the top. And the reason for this is because from Next.js 13 onwards, right, all your components in the new app directory are server components by default. Right, so if you want to use a client component and you want to have events and event handler working, right, you need to use the use client here. So save that, right, and then we'll see our counter appear, and we can do the usual, right, incrementing our counts, right? So that is no different from how you would create a client component, right? So remember that I mentioned that all components in the app directory are server components by default, right? So this page.tsx, right, called homepage, right, is actually a server component by default. But hey, we are using a client component here within a server component, right? So that is something you can do in Next.js 13. Okay, but we have been talking a lot about server components. Yeah. So what exactly are server components, right? So think of server components as, right, components that generate much lesser JavaScript, right? Of course, depending on how you design them, right, as compared to client components. Yeah. So for example, yeah, components, right, using the use client, right, obviously they are client components, right, they will send all the JavaScript here, yeah, so that there is the interaction, yeah, between the user and the app. Okay, but for server components, right, instead of doing this, Okay, so to demonstrate server components, okay, we're going to create a new file here. Let's call this logo.tsx, for example. Yeah, so nsfc, this will be logo. Okay, let's just call this logo. Yeah, right. And over here, we're going to display just a bunch of text, okay, but a lot of text. So for example, I'll say this is logo component, okay, and what we're going to do, okay, I'm going to copy this. Okay, we're going to paste this maybe all the way until 100. Yeah. So let's do a huge chunk of copy and pasting. Yeah. Right. So this is just to demonstrate the difference between server and client components. All right. So right now, by default, this is a server component. Okay. So now we're going to add that logo component over here. So let's do this, maybe below the page and in between two horizontal lines, and we'll say logo. Yep. And let's save that. Okay, you'll see all the this is logo component. Yeah. Okay. But okay, let's go to our console. Okay, let's go to our inspector, and okay, we're going to change the appearance of our, or the position of our console, and let's go to network. Yeah, so this is quite important because I'm going to show something that will demonstrate the difference between server and client components, right? Especially in terms of the amount of JavaScript sent to the front end. Yeah. All right. So now we're going to refresh the page. All right. So take a look at page.js. Yeah. This over here. Right. And let's take a look at the amount of JavaScript that was sent to the front end. So it's around 38.2 kilobytes done in 29 milliseconds. Yeah. Right. So right now that is using the logo as a server component, right? So if you go back to logo, so you can see that by default it is a server component. Yeah. Okay, but watch what happens when we change it to a client component. Yeah. And let's remove that. Okay. And let's save. All right. Let's go back to our page.tsx, and we're going to refresh the app. All right. Let's go. All right. So now let's pay attention once again to page.js. Okay, you can see that now the amount of JavaScript sent to the front end is now increased by almost 3 kilobytes, which is why now it's 41.3 kilobytes, and it takes slightly longer, right, for that operation to complete. Yeah. So this is just text, right? I mean, it is a lot of text, but imagine if you have a much bigger app. Yeah. The difference will be much, much bigger. Yeah. Okay. One more demonstration to demonstrate the difference, right? A very key difference between server and client components. All right. So once again, let's go back to our directory here above me. All right. We're going to create a new component. Let's call this list.tsx. Okay. So in Next.JS 13, okay, there's a new way of fetching data. All right. So by default, once again, all components are server components. Yeah. Right. So the new way of fetching, right? Okay, we can say async function. Let's create a new function. Let's call it get data. All right. And over here, okay, I'm going to expose one of my key or API key, okay, that I'm using for retrieving YouTube comments, right, for maybe any random videos. Yeah. So, okay, what we have is we have this, right? These are just some of the information that the API requires, right? Okay, and this is how you would use fetch in Next.JS 13. Yeah, so we're just passing in the snippet, the video ID, and the key itself. Yeah. Okay, and of course we need to check for errors. So if not res.ok, okay, we'll say maybe throw new error field to fetch data. All right, and return res.text. Right, so this itself is not our component. Okay, we still need to create our component, our server component. So nsfc, right? So this will be say list, right? Just list itself. Okay, and of course we are going to call our get data function here. So this will be constant. Let's call this data equals to await get data. All right, and we're just going to pass it back in to an object. Yeah, so pass data. All right. Okay, and of course save that. Okay, for now, okay, let's just JSON stringify and display everything from data. Okay, we'll use this data object later. Yeah, so save that. All right, and let's go back to our page at home. Okay, let's remove our counter. We do not need that anymore. And over here, okay, I'm going to import our newly created list component. Right, so save that. Okay, and let's close our inspector here. And actually, let's remove the logo as well. Yeah. Save that. Okay, you can see that we have retrieved all of the comments. Yeah. Okay, but once again, let's jump back to our inspector. Okay. And if we take a look at network, yeah, just take a look. Okay. Notice that there are no fetches, right, to any third party or YouTube here, right? So what is this telling us, right? This means that our very sensitive and very critical API key here, right, is not exposed, yeah? Right, it's not exposed to the front end. So server components are a way, or rather you should use server components especially, right, when you want to fetch. Yeah, when you want to fetch data, right? Right, so that is a very use case for server components. Yeah, so I mean, for example, if we have the client version of this, right, or rather actually, okay, we can just say, right, use client, yeah, save that. Okay, and you see that it gives us an error, yeah. Okay, because this cannot be async. And let's remove that as well. Okay, save that. And let's refresh the app. And you'll see now, since our list is now a client data, a client component, pardon me, right, a client component, right, if you look at the inspector now, right, okay, notice that we can see the third party fetch, yeah, the API request, yeah, so we can see the key in the API call, which is not secure, yeah, so this is why, especially if you're using Next.js 13, and if you need to fetch something, use server components, yeah, versus or compared to client components, right? So let me just undo everything here. Yep, save that. All right, and let's refresh. Yeah, so there we have our comments. Yeah, so that is a very huge difference, right, between server and client components. Yeah. All right, so now that we have gone through server and client components, okay, we really need to talk about streaming UI and Suspense. Yeah. So over here, okay, we are at the products page. Okay. Say for example, if we want to navigate to the home page that we created just now, right? So /home, okay, enter. Okay, it seems like it loads pretty fast and the comments were retrieved pretty fast. Okay, but let's go back to products, okay, /1 again. Okay, but this time, okay, using our inspector, we are going to throttle the network. All right, so instead of fast 3G, I'm going to say slow 3G. Yeah, you can do so over here. You can see that my mouse cursor is moving over here. So now we have reduced the network speed. So instead of products in 1, okay, we're going to say let's go to home. Enter. And you will notice that it seems like it is taking a while before this is the home page even gets displayed. Yeah, so let's take a look at that again. Right, so let me just disable the throttling to go back to products. Once again, or rather, let me just click on product 1 link. Yeah. All right, and let's make it slow 3G again. And let's go to home again. Right, enter. You'll notice that it takes a while for the home page to display. Yeah. Okay. And the reason for that is because with the slower connection, right, this as a server component, right, it has to do the fetching on the server before rendering and sending the HTML back to the front end. So that takes a while, and because the speed is slower, the UI is blocked. Yeah, so this is where streaming UI and Suspense comes in, right? So to prevent the UI from getting blocked, yeah, let's go back to page.tsx in our home directory. And this list here, right, this is what is blocking our homepage. Yeah, so to prevent that from doing so, we can make full use or leverage on Suspense to stream the UI in, right? So we can say Suspense, right? Okay, and okay, we'll wrap Suspense around our list, and we'll say fallback equals to loading the list. All right, so save that. Okay, and let's go back to products for now. Oops, right, that should be products /1. Yeah. So now we are on slow 3G. All right, slow 3G. Okay, watch what happens when we go to home this time. Yeah, home. Right, so notice that this is the home page appears first before the rest of the comments appear. Yeah, so now, right, this list doesn't block. This is the home page from appearing first. Yeah, so that is how you can manage different parts of your page from blocking the entire UI from loading fast. Yeah, so in a way, this is a good trick to give your user a better, I'll say a better user experience, because if he or she sees something loads first, right, the impression is that, oh, actually that was fast. Yeah. All right, so next, let's talk about fetching. Right, so for Next.js 13, okay, we have to talk about fetching, right, fetching data. So let's start with static data fetching, right? So what exactly is static data fetching, right? So that is just basically, right, revalidating, right, your cache data at a fixed time interval, right? So over here in our list.tsx, okay, we have this await fetch, okay, call, and all the way you can see that we have this configuration next, okay, and then revalidate 30, right? So this is 30 seconds, right? Every 30 seconds, whatever data is fetched here will be set as stale, and okay, we'll try and get fresh data on the next fetch. Yeah. So that is how you can do static data fetching. Okay, but if you want to do dynamic data fetching, which is essentially using no caching and always getting fresh data, right? Okay, instead of doing this, okay, let's remove that. Yeah, let's remove this, right? So for dynamic data fetching, all you have to do is use cache right? Semicolon and no store and save. Yeah. So if we refresh now, right, this is going to take a while. Yeah, you can see that it always takes the same amount of time, right? Because it's not doing any caching whatsoever. Okay, but let's undo what we changed here. Save. And let's refresh our app. Right, wait for it. All right. Okay, now that it has loaded, let's refresh again. All right, notice that the second load and now the third load is slightly faster, right? Because of the cache within the 30 seconds. Yeah. Moving on, okay, we really have to do a quick mention about API routes in Next.JS 13. Right, so for Next.js 13, API routes are still under the same old pages folder, right? So as Next.js 13 is still in beta, right, Vercel is still, I guess they're still wondering how they are going to include API routes in the new app directory, right? But for now, okay, API routes will still be in the pages directory, right? So over here, say for example, if we change this to users.ts, yeah. Okay, and let's go to the route. So there will be API/users, enter, right? And you'll see name John Doe appear. Yeah, so this is still the same for API routes. Yeah, even for Next.js 13 at this point in time. Yeah, because it's still better. Yeah. Okay, but okay, a lot of use cases where, for example, you might need to do data fetching, okay, have been resolved by using server components, right? So for example, okay, once again, let's go back to our home path and you'll see that, okay, we did our comments or YouTube comments fetching, okay, but the request is not shown here, yeah, because it's done in the server, right? Hence, server components. Yeah, you can leverage on server components and keep your tokens secure. Yeah. All right. So hopefully this short tutorial on the very exciting new features of Next.js 13, right, especially server components, right, was helpful, right? And of course, in order to not miss any such new videos, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, right? And as always, stay awesome and stay safe. And I'll see you soon. Cheers, man.